Did we lose Ravi? He's reconnecting. Let's wait for him. It's hot or cold in Lucknow?
It's hot and humid. It's not very hot, but it's very humid.
It's 2 years now, Radha, now in Lucknow?
Almost.
Wonderful. Yes, Ravi has joined back. Let's start. Good evening. Welcome to the third webinar in our series presented by QuorumVeda Consulting Services. As a consultancy startup, we are dedicated to empowering Indian startups in the realm of healthcare, science, and technology. Tackling complex global challenges demands innovative solutions which represent the future of our nation. It's essential to inspire our youth to embrace the roles of innovators and entrepreneurs. The journey of innovation and entrepreneurship is powered with dedication and resilience. Challenges are inevitable, but with the right mindset, we can overcome any obstacles that come our way. Today, we have 4 esteemed panelists. Dr. Radha Rangarajan is the Director of Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow, under CSIR. With over 2 decades in the translational research and product development, she has bridged the academia, startups, and industry. She co-founded Vitas Pharma, developing novel therapies for resistant infections and leveraging public-private partnerships for innovation. As Chief Technology Officer at HealthCubed, she led affordable diagnostic product development. Her accolades include FICCI Award for Excellence, recognition in Prime Minister Modi's Champions of Change, and the Discovery Award from the Longitude Prize Committee. She has significantly contributed to healthcare innovation with multiple patents and successful product developments. Dr. Ranjana Pathania is a professor in the Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering at IIT Roorkee. Her research focuses on drug discovery and the physiology of antibiotic-resistant pathogens, especially Acinetobacter baumannii. She developed chemical genomic methodologies for novel antibacterial discovery. Dr. Pathania has received numerous accolades, including DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance Senior Fellowship. She's involved in mentoring and supporting the next generation of researchers in her field. We have Dr. Ravikrishnan Elangovan, who is a professor in the Department of Biochemical Engineering and Biotechnology at IIT Delhi. He's a biophysicist focused on developing technologies for visualizing biological systems and diagnosing infectious diseases. He's the co-founder and chief innovation officer of Valitude Primus Healthcare. He co-leads the DOSHA project addressing antimicrobial resistance in India. And he is also involved in M-Pragati, a national facility for medical device development sponsored by ICMR and Department of Health Research. And we have Dr. Raksha Bhat, who is a consultant microbiologist and head of the department at St. Martha's Hospital, Bangalore. She specializes in clinical microbiology, infection prevention control, and laboratory accreditation. Dr. Raksha holds numerous degrees and certifications, highlighting her extensive experience. She has a special interest in the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare. Thank you very much for the panelists for joining this discussion. From your experience, what are the key benefits that medics and even non-medics academics bring to health tech innovation and health tech startup? Radha, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghafur, for bringing us all together on this platform on an exciting topic. I think, you're going to find, I'm looking forward to the discussion from my co-panelists who all bring a very special flavor to this discussion. I think the key question that we always ask ourselves when we embark on any product development journey is, what is the product that needs to go to the market, and who is the customer, and how will this product, particularly in the area of medicine, how will it fit in the overall workflow? If it's a diagnostic, how does it fit into a laboratory? If it's a drug, how does it fit in the treatment protocol? So one of the most important questions to ask is, what does this product going to look like, or what should it look like? And that is called a target product profile. A target product profile is the first thing that any startup, and for that matter, any academic interested in translational research, needs to understand and needs to be very clear about. Now, how do you build a TPP? And that is where I think medics play a very, very important role, because doctors see firsthand what tools or what drugs or what diagnostics are currently available, and what is the gap that needs to be reached, that needs to be bridged in order to improve the quality of care. And so I think a key input from medics is this is really around what exists currently and what needs to be done. And so the definition or the development of a target product profile can be hugely benefited by the involvement of medics. I think academics bring a certain other flavor to this, which is that they are often, some people do very blue skies research, and some interesting things come out of it. There is a certain translatability to such research. Others are working somewhere in between, and wherever they fit on the spectrum, what academics are doing is really pushing the edge of what is already, the edge of knowledge, edge of what is known. And there they can bring the unique perspective on what technology or what approach or what methodology can help bridge the gap. So I think in an ideal environment, you need innovators who are thinking very creatively about new products and who understand how to take a product from bench to market. Then you need medical professionals who can really make sure that these products that go to market they bring real value to the end customer, whether it's a doctor or a patient, but they are really improving healthcare. And then the academics really bring the flavor of, what's the best way, or what are the what does the current research really tell us about how to get to this target product profile. So I think everybody's got a very special role in this ecosystem, and if more people can, if these stakeholders can come together, then you really can do much more efficient product development.
Thank you, Radha, for stressing the importance of identifying the target product profile before embarking on a medtech innovation, and the role of bringing the academics, the designers, and the medics on board for identifying that target product profile. Dr. Ranjana, what is your opinion on that?
For bringing this group together, and I totally agree with Dr. Radha that everyone seems to have a role to play. Medics have definitely a very, very big role to play. Am I audible?
Yes.
There seemed to be a lag. So definitely medics have a very, very important role to play in terms of what the patient needs. They know the needs of the patient. Their role is to understand the whole ecosystem. They can definitely play a very, very big role in terms of customization of the product. Academics definitely will bring in a lot of scientific innovation to the product. Whatever product that we're talking about, they definitely bring a lot of R&D into the product, standardizations, customizations, after understanding the needs of the medics. And in addition to that, engineers, being in IIT, I've realized that, engineers, they do look at products in a totally different way. So they bring in a very, very novel perspective as well. So if we could, team up these three sort of parties together, and if they can be involved in the evolution of the product early on, then I think we've got a golden team in terms of understanding the needs of the patient, in terms of bringing the innovation to the end product user.
Thank you, Ranjana, for stressing the team, the golden team of the engineers, the academics, and the medics. And that's the need of the hour. Dr. Ravi, what is your opinion on this topic?
So thanks, Dr. Ghafur and QuorumVeda for this opportunity. It's really good to come back to this panel where we have many friends here. So I think there was a comment I heard that medical doctors have been very successful in innovation and entrepreneurship. And so this is a comment I wanted to think about and why it is so. I think the medical doctors have, by training, a lot of risk mitigation in the process and thinking mindset. So the risk mitigation is a kind of a mindset you live through when you are an entrepreneur. You survive is a kind of a overarching goal that comes into your mind. And likewise, patient saving is a overarching goal for the doctors. So in this way, I think they have inbuilt a natural tendency to solve a complex problem in a step-by-step system. I think there is a very good natural advantage for medical doctors to contribute in a big way. Of course, what my previous panelists also have mentioned, a lot of useful points. And I want to touch upon what is the academicians can contribute in the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem. So as academicians, we are all well supported with a little bit of a financial salary-wise in the long term. So this is actually a very big advantage in comparison to other entrepreneurs, actually. So you have a very given support for your logistics. So that means that academicians should look after for high-risk projects. So if there are innovations gaps that is existing, and academicians are best suited to work on new type of ideas and technologies which has a very high probability of failures. Because even if there is 50 times failure or 90% failure, they have a regular things to look at it. But if they are able to contribute with the new innovations, then it has actually ended up changing the way the impact in healthcare and other systems. So there is a unique combination that I think the current ecosystem is also encouraging a lot of innovation with the academician. So there is a good chance for many of us to take up challenges and look at the innovations so that many healthcare and other problems can be solved.
Thank you, Ravi. Now, Raksha, you are a medic. And what do you think the role of medics in innovation entrepreneurship? Are we innovators? Are we entrepreneurs? Because Dr. Ravi mentioned, about risk mitigation. We doctors especially, we are tuned to and trained to mitigate the risk. We don't take risk. We don't love risk. We see risk every day in our practice. And we read guidelines. We follow guidelines to reduce the risk. So don't you think it's a conflict or between innovation and being a medic?
Yes, true, very true. So firstly, good evening to all the panelists. It's wonderful to hear from the other side of the fence, especially when you actually think that there is a fence between the innovators and the medics and the academicians, which we are trying to break with these kind of webinars at QuorumVeda. I just wanted to share a thought when I heard all of you. There's this quote by George Bernard Shaw, like, you have an apple, I have an apple. At the end of the day, we have a basket of apples. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, if we share with each other, both of us will have 2 ideas each. I think that's how these kind of sessions multiply the ideas that we have and we can work on them. What I'm getting from all 3 of you, the panelists and sir, is there's a gap. Definitely there's a gap, which we have to admit. Now, how do we address this gap from the medico's perspective? Like sir said, okay, there are risks that we take day in and day out with a patient care perspective. At the end of the day, whatever we are making or creating has to reach the end user, which would be the patient. And the first person who talks to the patient or who treats the patient would be a doctor. So your end user is invariably a physician who is treating the patient. So the role of a medico in a project that would create something would be of much more importance if he is in the project from the start. So starting from the conceptualizing of a need, like Dr. Radha said, you need to have a target profile of a product. If the doctor is involved, the physician is involved from right from the conceptualization to the end user, like when it starts to come into the market, and then taking back the feedback loop. I think at every level the medicos have to be involved, and there is a gap. Of course, we have seen a technological bloom, like since the 1990s. We have a lot of things that have been in terms of diagnostics, therapeutics. A lot of things have come across globally and even in India. But then, is it reaching the end user? At the end of the day, is it reaching the second tier cities, third tier cities, community health centers where it is not uniformly distributed? Even if something is up in the market, there's a lot of gap in terms of accessibility and the reachability of a product. And I think as medicos, doctors, if we are involved in this at various levels, even in terms of academics, when we like Ravi said about the academics part, even in our undergraduate training, if we have some idea incubators where the undergraduates can take this up as a project, they'll have a perspective towards getting into innovation and see this as one of their career component and not just treating patients. So this also becomes a job description or a skill set that a medico can develop right from his academics and training level. So that is one perspective that I wanted to share.
Thank you, Radha. Now, when I was an MBBS student or a postgraduate student, I don't think any of the medical textbooks ever mentioned the word entrepreneurship. I don't remember reading that word in any of the medical textbook or even journals to a great extent. I think the scenario still remain the same. Doctor, what is the current level of involvement of medics in health tech startups in India? Or are there examples of such collaboration?
I think there are several examples of medical doctors becoming entrepreneurs and by setting up hospitals. And I would say that every doctor who has an independent private practice is an entrepreneur of sorts, because you really, at the end of the day, you're delivering a service and you are responsible for bringing in the revenues to pay salaries, right? So I think everybody in that sense, every physician who's got an independent practice is doing that. But there have been several examples of doctors also starting health tech companies. If you look at the early 2000s, Teledoc, which was one of those earliest platforms for remote healthcare, etc. That was started by a medical doctor, I can think of several examples where a medical doctor was involved, maybe not as a founder, but cleanly involved from the very beginning. So it's not unusual, but I think that there is it's a very small minority of people who are actively interested in entrepreneurship or innovation from the medical community. And that is, I think, partly to do with the training. But it's even, so I'll talk about an example from my experience at IIIT Hyderabad, where I headed the MedTech incubator for a year or so. And as part of the MedTech incubator, as part of the the programs that we started, one experiment we tried was to bring in medical doctors who had just completed their MD, for example, and who had some interest in entrepreneurship but did not know really how to get started. So it might be that they have an idea which needs to be incubated or which needs technology support. So the program allowed the doctor to come into IIIT Hyderabad. There was funding available for the doctor, and there was technology support from IIIT Hyderabad faculty. And it turned out to be very difficult to find physicians who are willing to take that on full time. And partly it's because people are trying to establish themselves as physicians, and it's the beginning of their career, or it's they're eager to get started as practitioners. And so the learning from that was that perhaps that's the wrong phase of life. That's the wrong group of people to be looking at, and that one needs to look to more seasoned physicians who are maybe 10, 15 years into their clinical practice and are willing to take some risk or have some ideas and want to experiment with product development and entrepreneurship. So I think at the end of the day, we really do need to look at the education system for sure, because I think that people do have ideas, but then they don't know how to, they don't have the support to take them forward. And I think we really need to create funding mechanisms for doctors to really try out entrepreneurship in some form, in some manner. And that I think will enrich the ecosystem, because without medical doctors, the healthcare, the health tech space, I think it'll remain incomplete. And I think the third thing is that, where we have seen success, let's look at those examples, like the Stanford India Biodesign Program, which is run at AIIMS. There you see very successful collaborations between doctors, engineers, and so on. And those are programs that are carefully mentored. They are funded programs. They're very focused. They are built around this idea of design thinking. And design thinking says that you have to really understand what problem you're trying to solve. And it's not enough to just understand it theoretically. You actually really need to empathize and understand the problem from the perspective of the person whose problem you're trying to solve. So this design thinking methodology seems to have plus the protection of that program has, I think, led to a successful initiative, and it's been running for several years, where physicians have been able to participate very, very, very closely. So that program focused on devices, I think also maybe some diagnostics, and has worked, but something similar to that needs to be in place to experiment with other ideas that doctors may have. And in India, we don't really have too many MD PhD programs, where doctors can go and do research, and that research can lead to new ideas to start companies or to become entrepreneurs even. So that's again something that perhaps we need to boost, and I believe ICMR is very actively working to address this. But these are some thoughts on what's working, what's not working, but also, are there successful examples? Most certainly, yes.
Thank you, Radha. You rightly mentioned all we doctors are entrepreneurs in a sense, because we have our clinics. And some of us have hospital, small hospital, big hospital. But our idea of entrepreneurship stop with the clinics, hospitals, or maybe telemedicine that help us to expand our practice or practice models. Beyond that, innovation is not something that we look into. But even if you have ideas, as you rightly mentioned, it's difficult to get it done because we don't know where to go, we don't know where to collaborate. And even if there is funding and facility available, we have to concentrate in our practice. And we can't, especially youngsters can't get into the innovation area unless we design a new training program aimed at that. Otherwise, we can look into senior clinicians who has got the time, they got the juniors, so they have got the time to do such innovation and entrepreneurship ideas. Dr. Ranjana, now, apart from the medics, the non-medic academicians, what is preventing them in big institutions, in big government institutions and big private institutions? What is preventing the non-medical academics into getting into innovation and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a billion-dollar question, I think. I think it again has to do with risk-taking, right? I think Ravi mentioned it beautifully that, doctors are a lot into risk-taking, but then when you talk to any academician, by training, we're not into risk-taking. And entrepreneurship, I think, involves a lot of risk-taking. And it has to do with a bit with the ecosystem, for sure, a bit with the, with the lack of, understanding what kind of products are needed out there. So that could come in handy with the interactions with the medics. But then more or less, it's to do with multiple factors, such as, understanding the need of the end. I mean, where is the end product going to be used? What kind of end product needs to be there? And that can come in handy with, say, some of the IITs and even ISC, they've started a hospital now, right? When we talk about healthcare. So such kind of ecosystems, they give you a lot of exposure. So Radha was mentioning about MD, PhD. So ISC has started they're probably going to start the first MD, PhD. So if IITs could have, hospitals and medical colleges in our campuses, I think it's a brilliant idea. But then the whole managing aspect of it, it might become too much. We're trying to learn from IIT Kharagpur. But then there are a lot of IITs who are getting into this ecosystem that brings in a lot of ecosystem for the academicians to understand the problems. And then from there, once they get to interact with the relevant people, with the relevant clinicians, with the third parties, then I think they have a lot of exposure. And then probably by looking at such kind of ecosystems, the risk-taking ability, I think, goes in. And also, the mentorship for academicians, especially in case of healthcare, medical devices. But when we talk about, drugs, so for instance, going from preclinical studies to clinical studies, that kind of hand holding, that kind of, mentorship, if that is accessible, I think it has a lot to do with that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ranjana. That will be a great idea. IIT starting medical schools in the campus. And we all know that great ideas start in coffee shops. So medics, academicians, and engineers having coffee together and developing ideas and working together. Probably that will be one of the ways forward. Ravi, what do you think about how can we overcome these challenges?
Hey, I think very nicely articulated about the medical doctors missing in the innovation ecosystem. I think some kind of a fellowship or some program can be set for that thing. But in academics, I mean, why we are not actually focusing on innovation so much, it's actually very hard fact that all the performance metrics for academicians are set on publications. Okay, Publications is an important record keeping, and it continues on to build on to the knowledge from one generation, and it keeps building us better and better things. But I think right now, as we are seeing, it's about impact. It is not just only a knowledge written into a document. It is also knowledge applied to generate a product, and those are protected with IPs. And not only just having a products that are delivered to society to create an impact. So the universities and academic institutions should actually aspire to create impact in their near and ecosystem. So that is really now, I think, kind of shifting towards the goals. For example, now IIT has changed in its vision statement to also not just only for education, which is we are originally designed for creating the manpower, but we slowly entered into research. Now we are actually actively looking at as also innovation. Now these innovations, be it patent on the products, they are not actually counted in the career paths and different steps. So I think this is something slowly changing, but this now needs to be given equal weightage. If you have a patent, international, national, these should be given a weightage in the promotional and other parts. And also some part of time, if they are spent in the entrepreneurship, that should be also welcomed and recognized. So this is done in a very large way to IIT Delhi, where I'm from, but I'm hoping that this will spread across to the other universities and ecosystem. So I think it's all, we can actually encourage a little bit of this risk appetite, right? So we have a very clearly set goals for us. So we have PhD students, we have to finally enter into a publications. Now, if we are going off this kind of cycle, then it is actually a risk in terms of our time to be spent on things that may not be directly useful. So I think our ecosystem should actually redefine success metrics so that these things will be also considered as a academic success of the institute and also for the researchers.
Ravi, that's a very good point. Now, I'll expand, I'll ask an extension of the question to Radha. Ravi mentioned about success metrics. Now, academics are participating in innovation entrepreneurship as a part of incubation in the institutions. But the success rate is probably 10 to 30%. So how do we measure the success? Is the involvement or about the success of that innovation project?
Well, let's look at this from the point of view of an investor, right? Because for any company to develop a product, money is needed, and typically when an academic is spinning off a startup, there may be some initial grant funding and so on and so forth, but sooner or later money will have to come into the startup, right? So when that money comes in, it comes with a certain expectation that there's a probability, a good probability of taking a product to market. The product will sell, revenues will be generated, and eventually the investor earns through either selling her or his stake in the company or from the value created through the business. So in this structure, if a company, whether it's founded by an academic or not, does not take a product to market, then it is seen as an investor or whoever it is, that the founders not being able to not being able to create value. So just as academics become very binary, about achievement, papers, publications, papers or not, the same way companies become very binary about, do you have revenues or not? Are you profitable or not? And because of this, if we say that, okay, only 10% or 5% or whatever that number is of academic startups are successful, it's because of this very binary way of looking at things. But is there another way of looking at it? I mean, from an investor's perspective, no, right? Because they are putting in money. From an entrepreneur's perspective, yes, because, or rather from an ecosystem's perspective, yes, because let's say a company pursues a particular product and for whatever reason is not successful. The next company that gets founded in the same space learns from that experience. So when you look at mature ecosystems, like you look at Western Europe, you look at the US, what you find is that success comes on the back of many failed companies. So failed companies may be termed so in a very binary system, but actually they are making huge contributions to the overall ecosystem, and we must have them. And we must support startups precisely for the reason that ultimately we will get to great products. But if we never invest in startups and never get off this fence to say, okay, we can't take a risk, then we will not create incredible, breakthrough products. So I would say that startups contribute greatly to an understanding of what products will and will not fly. I'm a great believer in having appropriate milestones and criteria in place so that, you don't spend millions and millions of dollars to get to that point of saying, okay, this is not viable, right? You take a more practical approach to it, and therefore you are able to come to a conclusion sooner rather than later about whether your product idea has legs. And the same thing applies to academics running startups. But as Ranjana and Ravi were saying, where is the support for academics who are spinning off startups? I think that in some, and by the way, for example, in the CSIR system, innovation is greatly supported. We are greatly encouraged to work on translational research, to take products, to develop prototypes, and to take products, to work on product ideas. But within the CSIR system, scientists cannot spin off their own companies. And therefore, the only model that exists is for scientists, not scientists, but for the institutes to license the IP or the know-how to a private entity, which can then take it forward. So I think that this is one model. And in this model, we are critically dependent on having startups who are willing to try innovative, cutting-edge ideas, or who are willing to take a prototype and develop it to the next level, at which point a larger company may get interested. So we really need to support this community of academic startups or academic-led startups in very key aspects, ranging from, how to write a business plan, how to develop a business model, principles of business development, how to raise money from private investors. It's all this, it's all the nitty-gritty of running a startup that you're not going to learn from a textbook, you're not going to learn from within academia, but it's essential for academic startups to really take off. So yes, failure is inherent, it is inevitable, it should be embraced. At the same time, to reduce failure rates, academics need much more support, and that is a very essential thing for the Indian ecosystem.
Thank you, Radha. The primary aim of initially when we designed this particular webinar session, we thought of concentrating medics, but then now we have got a bigger perspective, a broader perspective. And the challenge that we medics face is also applicable to non-medic academic institutions. They're also facing the same challenge. So probably the solutions that we look forward in the medical field and the non-medical academicians could be mutually beneficial. And as Radha has very rightly stressed, from an investor's perspective, of course, the success of the entrepreneurship is the most important. But when academic institutions encourage innovation, entrepreneurship, even a failure should be considered as success for an academic, for an academician. Raksha, what is preventing me and you from being innovators and entrepreneurs? Why are we not jumping into entrepreneurship, apart from clinic and hospitals?
Yes, sir. I think that's something which we can introspect and also see retrospectively how we have grown as a medical community. The lack of enthusiasm in the medical community as such of why don't we take up such initiatives? There can be multiple factors. One thing is the awareness. Firstly, whether the awareness of the problem is there and the solution is also there within the doctors. What can be done and what can be created. But to materialize that, the hurdles that we have could be many. First thing is, if you could see the current healthcare setting, the number of doctors per se, as such in the country, how many are there per, the community ratio that we look at, like one doctor for 44,000 population or whatever, that, the ratio, even if it is between the urban and rural setups, the divide that we have, and the time constraints for these clinicians. As a clinician, you would know the number of patients that you see every day. The first problem for you at hand would be to solve the patient's illness for that day and cure him. The long-term vision of creating a solution for that problem would be there in your mind. But to materialize that, do you have enough time to work on that? Because primarily you are a physician treating the patient. Second thing is we were talking about risk management and risk mitigation, but fundamentally we have a aversion towards risk. The moment we talk about risk in hospitals, we talk about accreditation, quality management, and there are people who are looking into risks. For us, risk is about dealing with the patient, treating him, and curing, and our risk mitigation ends there as a physician. Third thing, what I feel is the financial burden we physicians face at a very primary care level, the salary compensations that we have, and the lack of funding for these kind of initiatives. Where is the money going to come from? If I have an idea, we don't have the awareness of the funding opportunities. Firstly, they are not there. They are very less. And even if they are there, we are not aware of these things. Third thing is the interdisciplinary collaborations. Of course, we have a lot of biotech parks and institutions like IITs. I am supporting, along with your idea incubators, hackathons. But we as physicians, is our presence there, mentally, physically? I don't think many of us are even getting into those kind of forums or such kind of talks or conferences. We are hardly aware of such things. Even if you are attending any CMEs or conferences, they're primarily technical, like our specialities. We don't go beyond our specialities. So that is something which is majorly lacking. Another important aspect, what I feel, is the lack of business knowledge. We medicos do not have any business knowledge at all. I'm sorry to say, we do not know where the money goes, how does it come, what are we going to do, like what Dr. Radha said. Any project needs to be sustainable. An investor is going to ask you, where is this money going to go? What am I going to get after a couple of years? Is this sustainable? What is the long-term vision for this project? Is it scalable? So that kind of long-term vision, I think we as medicos need to build. And we need to look at the financial aspect of any kind of project and learn about the management. And these things, these nitty-gritties are not being taught anywhere. Even the regulatory compliances and the requirements, I don't think all of us are aware of these things. And also we come from a very different sort of cultural background where we don't look at these issues as something which is our responsibility to take. I might have an idea, but to put that into practice, I think, okay, there are engineers and biotech people to look into it. let them take care of it. I'm going to use it once they make it. I think that sort of attitude, I think that is stopping us, all these factors.
Yeah, Raksha, first of all, you rightly enumerated all the important challenges. First, we don't like risk. We try to mitigate the risk. That's why we are taught and trained on a daily
True.
basis. And number two, we have got also that consumerist mentality. Let others invent. And why do we take that pain? And we are busy with treating the patients. And we have got ready-made products, drugs, vaccines, diagnostics, where we have got data from randomized control trials, and we can just use it. And why do we want spend our time for developing these products or drugs? And our knowledge about innovation or research is we do clinical trials. That's the maximum we do. And that's understanding of the medics. We believe that is innovation, and we believe that is research. So the whole mindset of the medics should change. It's not our fault. That's why we are taught, that's why we live, and that's our culture is. And that culture need to change. See, in my own case, I learned about the importance of innovation, entrepreneurship, only probably a couple of years ago. And that's from the AMR experience. I learned whatever policy changes you make up, whatever work you do in countries like India, it's very difficult to implement on the ground. And that's nobody's fault. Again, that's a complexity of the system, a social system of our country or in any country. And probably what the solution will be innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, even for attitude change, even for behavioral change, we need innovation. And we have been talking about antibody stewardship for years, for decades. We know very little change that we have made because we need innovations even to create behavioral change. When we talk about innovation, it's not just the technology, even innovation to produce that behavioral change. That's what we need to look. That's why personally I learned the importance of innovation, and that's changed my whole outlook towards antimicrobial resistance issue.
True.
Now coming back to Ravi, now if we want medics into innovation, we want academicians into innovation. At what level, what stage we need medics and academicians to be involved into the startups? Early stage or late stage?
No, I think from the beginning, right? So it is definitely good to have a clinical perspective from the beginning of the thinking process itself, so that you have somebody who has experienced the journey of the patients and others can be actually incorporated into the product designing. And the journey is like, there is an idea and you demonstrate the proof of concept, and then you go to a little bit in terms of scalable, manufacturable, and then you go to a clinical evaluation and then market it. Now, of course, there are like all these different sets of journey. We require different kind of knowledge. May not be all available with one set of people, right? So that's where you need to actually always have a mixed collaborations with people with a innovation background, people with a clinical background, usage, and also people with a little bit around in terms of regulatory aspects. A lot of things, we have a great idea, wonderful product, started having things working in this one, but how it will be regulated, right? So it may actually involve multiple stage regulatory step that may require different amount of resources and time. Now, most of the time when we see that the failures or whatever that we say about in the entrepreneurship is mismanaging the expectation. Now, when we ourselves started into the entrepreneurship journey, we thought, 3 years, we will hopefully complete the product journey. But then we did not have a knowledge about how things are regulated, what kind of standards needs to be followed, how this application is submitted in different stages. So like this, there are different compartments of knowledge. It is actually impossible to have all of these things within one. That's where we need to have a few core members who are driven and passionate about the solution. So the medical or from academic background, they should be convinced that this solution should exist. their actually all drive is to make it happen. Of course, they need to collaborate and learn from different expertise and take support from different experts at different journey to support for the regulatory, support for the marketing, support for the financial legal requirement. So in a sense, we are actually requiring thinking about how medical or academical people will be best suited to drive a successful product. It is just that we need to also equip with the broad range of expertise in terms of how the entrepreneurship journeys are like, what are the different stages. Now, the basic background knowledge is available. They will be at least able to say, in this journey, I need to contact this kind of an expertise. And of course, their main contribution is going to be, of course, from the particular expertise of themselves. Driving the clinical evaluation or conducting the first few innovations to make the proof of concept for the product. So the deep expertise is required, but then you have a basic working knowledge in the other domains that is required in the entrepreneurship. So I think this is a kind of a training that we need to give for our future entrepreneurs to have a working knowledge in all the different subjects, but their own subject, they have excellently mastery. Because at the end, innovation is to drive a new solution that is better than the existing ones. So to have that kind of a capacity, the mastery in their subject is one of the requirement. So
we think maybe you very well stressed that point. We need a few core members who can spend time, dedicated time for that particular innovation or entrepreneurship project. That is difficult for the medics with the current training infrastructure. We do our MBBS, then we need to do our MD, then we have to do our DM. And where do we get time? We can't dedicate 3 to 5 years for an innovation or entrepreneurship project with the current training system. So that leaves us involvement as advisors. And when we talk to advisors, to any senior consultant, if you look at my conflict of interest disclosure, whenever I attend a policy meeting, my COI, spans to several pages, advisor to MNCs, to small companies in Chennai. That's our current understanding about advisors to companies or innovators. We don't talk to startups. We are hesitant to spend time to startups or small entrepreneurs. We find them, they are just developing products. Why do we need to get involved? Okay, why should we spend our time? Because it needs a lot of dedication and spending time. And even I talk to many advisors to startup. They spend few hours probably in a year, but that's not a real deep involvement of or supporting that entrepreneur. And that leaves the entrepreneurs in dilemma, or probably they develop the wrong technology and they realize that the wrong need, and they realize that after reaching the real medical community. This is not what we want. This doesn't change our practice. That probably will change if there is a deeper involvement of the end users, that's the medics, from the conceptualization stage onwards. But the current medical training system doesn't allow that. And Dr. Ranjana, I discussed about what we face from the medical world. From a non-medical academician point of view, what is the challenge for early stage involvement?
Challenge is similar to medical professionals, the exposure. So I think with there's a lot of stress on new education policy that IITs are trying to implement, where there's a lot of flexibility in terms of, for example, I'll give you some examples. For example, we've recently started honors BTech with major specialization and a minor specialization. So they end up doing some amount of engineering courses and then some amount of management courses or entrepreneurial courses, right? We've introduced tinkering labs now. There's a huge tinkering facility in IITs now, where and we have a lot of people interested into biomedical engineering, where they go into tinkering labs early on, So from past 2-3 years, we've made it compulsory for BTech first years and second years to go into the tinkering lab in groups of say 6 or 10 or 8, and then have a small project. Now, this kind of, I think these kind of little bit of, tinkering of courses here and there, curriculum here and there, is likely to do, a lot in terms of thinking. And we're already seeing a lot of people getting interested in their projects now. Earlier, it was all about placements in your third year. There's a saying that, you get into IIT, you chill for 2 years. In the third year, you start working hard. And in the, between third year and fourth year, you get your placement. And then you walk away with, big fat package. And then 2 years, 3 years into that, you do an MBA, and then, you have a managerial. But now we've already, and then people never used to turn up for their projects. But then after having this tinkering labs, we've seen a lot of difference, at least in IIT Roorkee. I don't know about IIT Delhi and other IITs, but that seems to be doing a lot of difference. So I don't know, it might sound like a crazy idea, but then, and I don't know if the time permits, but for MBBS curriculum, is there some such kind of labs that can give exposure to these students, or maybe even MD, PhD degrees? They get exposure into the labs. They do the experiments themselves. They deal with resistant bugs, and then they deal with antibiotic resistance themselves. They discover their own molecules, and then maybe, they get interested, right? They feel for the project, and then maybe, it's a good idea. And then that combined with maybe minor specialization in business entrepreneurial training would at least, get 5% students interested. And if we can get 1 to 5% students interested on these lines, then I think, that can bring in a lot of change in mindset. So catch them early on in their undergrads, not like later on, right? So I think that's one way to do this.
Thank you, Ranjana. So that's a wonderful idea. It's very difficult to change the mindset of all these old medics like myself. But if you catch youngsters, we can make a change. Raksha, what's your opinion about the wonderful suggestion Ranjana has given?
I think these are practically feasible, sir. Like whatever we are discussing, these kind of initiatives, if they come from a higher level, like an institutional policy, wherein at an undergraduate curriculum, we include this as a part of their logbook, and a training. You would find at least 5 or 10 out of 100 batch of students interested in these things. Primarily, they wouldn't be interested to become a doctor. Somebody would have an engineering mindset and a background, and would be very aware of a very clinical problem, and would have an idea which could be materialized. So if you put them across with people who can guide them through mentorship or fellowship programs, it could be a small 2 months or a 3-month internship where they get this exposure that these kind of career development pathways are possible. Like Dr. Ranjana said, right from the undergraduate level. If we could add this in our curriculum, I think that's a very practical option. It can be done. I think many institutions are already doing it. Dr. Radha mentioned about AIMS having a Stanford program, if I'm not wrong. I think this can be done at various institutions, and this can be a part of their assessment as well, so that people get interested and motivated that way. It would add to their scores. And Ravi said about that being a part in IIT, and probably in our MBBS curriculum we should have that as a part of our training, and that would really help. And one more thing, what I feel is, once you get into it, you should also guide them. Having mentors only from a clinical background wouldn't help. Getting them in touch with people who are into biotech projects in institutions who are working on a similar problem elsewhere across the country. I think that sort of exchange programs can happen. It could really motivate the undergraduates and postgraduates in medicine to come up with their ideas and have a practical solution which they have made themselves. And they are more accountable, and they feel, this is something which they own. And having funding opportunities, having that kind of support, financial support, and also that security that we talk about. Dr. Radha mentioned about the IIT Hyderabad the project where they had MD, early career doctors. I think initially once we pass out, we always think about how to have a settled job, applying for different institutions, either get into a medical college or a corporate hospital. I think that sort of attitude needs to change, and I think these kind of initiatives would help in bringing that confidence in physicians that okay, this is also a career pathway that I can look out for, and there is an assurance that this has a future to it, financially, uh, sustainability wise, and also encouraging their passion towards science. At the end of the day, I think whether you're a doctor or engineer, you want to make a difference through science to healthcare or patient care. So that has to be supported in various ways.
Thank you. So the first day of MBBS course, the dean should come to the lecture theatre and ask, how many of you joined medical course because you wanted to be engineers, but your parents forced you to become doctors.
I
So
think
I'm
you'll
sure
find
half of the class will raise hands. I can guarantee that. And now, so the deacon, so wonderful. We need you. Now get into the tinkering labs. Now that's going to change the medical training altogether. There's a new perspective to that medical training. Probably more engineering students will now get into the medicine. Radha, what's your opinion on that?
No, I definitely think it's a mindset issue. It's a question of practice. You see, if a medical student is never asked, hey, how would you solve this problem? Or what kind of a solution do you imagine could solve a problem X? If no one is asked that question and nobody is nobody is valuing that kind of input, then students are not going to somehow magically develop an entrepreneurial mindset. To me, it's always been a paradox. A hospital is a fountain of problems waiting to be solved, problems in healthcare and patient care waiting to be solved. Whether it's a process problem or it's an application problem or it's a drug usage problem, you name it. You can, I think in a hospital, any number of interesting problem statements simultaneously exist. So I've always wondered why things like hackathons, the medical equivalent of a hackathon, doesn't happen in medical schools. No, why don't you get students into an amphitheater every, one Saturday a month and say, here are 10 problems that the hospital is dealing with, no current solution to it. How do you think you could solve it? It seems to me that hospitals don't see, or in the medical field, we don't believe that the solutions can come from within. So it's really a mindset issue. I think also in India, overall, generally speaking, risk appetite is low. So it's not that it's the medical profession in particular. It's everywhere. And it's if you leave a career to start a company, you're often looked at with very suspicious eyes. I was often told that I left Dr. Reddy's to start my own company and it was career suicide. And I said, and these attitudes towards entrepreneurship, generally speaking, in our society, those attitudes have to change because we have to see it as part and parcel of building a career. And I don't know when that change will happen more. systemically, but it's clear that if you're looking, for example, at India today, and you're saying that so many million jobs need to be created, where do you think those jobs will come? It's not going to be large corporates creating these jobs. What we will need is millions of small entrepreneurs. And these small entrepreneurs may create jobs for 5, 6, 10 people. And a multitude of such entrepreneurs will build they will create the opportunities for highly skilled people. So I think that entrepreneurship is being embraced more widely in the medical profession. There's definitely a huge need to look within and say, okay, what are all the different things that can be done? So I'm a big believer in this sort of throw out a problem, see what kind of solution comes out. So hackathons. Also, I think BIRAC in India has made a huge difference to the funding, to funding, in terms of bringing funding opportunities to entrepreneurs, whether they are individuals, they are startups, academics, whatever the case may be. So I think people need to know what exists, what kind of resources are available. There are some excellent incubators across the country. For example, there is C-Camp in Bangalore, there's Venture Center in Pune, there's IKP Knowledge Park in Hyderabad. There are several other incubators like this, which offer resources from, helping to develop ideas, to finding investment, to providing small grants. So the medical professionals also need to educate themselves about some of these resources that are becoming more available. And finally, I think entrepreneurship at its core is really about being driven to finding solutions. So curiosity driven is what I would say academics are. Everybody, they start, there's some question, there's a curiosity, there's a desire to find an answer. And with entrepreneurs, there's a question, but they are driven, they're really motivated by wanting to find a solution. And that mindset of wanting to find a solution is something that we don't actively talk about or encourage at any level, in society. I think that even before people get to medical school, in schools, we should be talking about this. So in design thinking workshops, for example, I've talked about, whatever it is you do in your daily life, there must be something that you think, there must be some problem that you think needs fixing. What is it? Did you ever think about it? Do you ever think that you could solve that problem? And and getting people to think about first defining the problem and then defining solutions in small ways, in their own lives, and so on and so forth, and then expanding that circle. That's how you learn to take risk. It's not going to happen one fine day that you say, oh, I'm ready to embrace risk. Okay, yeah, some people are, have that risk-taking appetite and they're willing to take a plunge, but it can also be learned. So these are all things which I think need to be encouraged.
Thank you. Radha, you may remember during the COVID time, I used to organize webinars with economists. And you remember one, Rangarajan sir and other economists during the COVID time. And until that time, none of us, especially medical community, was not even aware about the importance of economists in policy making. And we learned that in a hard way during the COVID. At one stage, government was listening more to economists than the medical advisors for the right reasons. No complaints. It was a right decision. But just like that, just like the COVID scenario, when we talk about the medtech entrepreneurship, we know that 90% of our country's economy is MSME, not big corporates. Just like that, when you talk about medtech entrepreneurship, if you take economics on board or the financial ideas on board, probably we'll be able to get better support from the policymakers. What big difference our country can make when we have more involvement from medics and academicians in medtech entrepreneurship. That may change policy.
Yeah. Oops, Dr. Ghafur, you seem to be frozen. Oops.
I think while he's coming back, I think a lot of interesting points we have touched upon. It's very interesting to have this conversation.
Yeah, agreed. Are there questions from the participants? I didn't see anything in the chat box.
Dr. Radha, is there any incubation center for Chennai for doctors to give a startup? This is Dr. Suresh Naga. I'm a colleague of Dr. Ghafur in Apollo.
Oh, okay. There is the one incubator I'm aware of is particularly focused on women entrepreneurs. But of course, IIT Madras. IIT Madras has multiple incubators, not one but three, I believe, and they do fantastic work in medical devices, and sort of at the AI-driven product development and so on. So yeah, IIT Madras would be the place that comes to my mind. It's a hub of innovation.
Thank you.
So in your practice, I mean, Dr. Raksha, when you talk to doctors, do you see a shift in the thinking? I mean, as more people are now becoming entrepreneurs, generally speaking, I mean, compared to 10 years ago, there is more acceptance, and that seems to be increasing overall. Do you think that's also happening in the medical profession?
There is an awareness sort of picture, but it is not something which I think it's going to materialize because of the hurdles that I had spoken about. There is awareness, and it depends on the age group of doctors that you're talking to, especially when you're talking about senior, level doctors. I don't think they even want to get into these sort of initiatives. But the youngsters, like say somebody who's just passed out fresh MD, or say is in early career stage, thanks to the awareness of the technological advancements that we have made as a country, and all the initiatives that have been around, people are aware that these opportunities are there, but that risk aversion is definitely there. So what am I going to gain out of this, and is this sustainable? How much am I going to earn at the end of the day? These kind of questions do come up in the physicians, from a physician's point of view, because I think it's basically a human tendency to have this fear, because this is something new. The platform is completely new, and to step into something of that sort, unless you are deeply passionate. Ravi said about the having a core member team which is very passionate about the project and wants to take it up forward. And if it is not going to succeed, and if you're expecting a failure that is going to happen, how are you going to show it in your career pathway? Like, how is it going to reflect on your CV? And all these kind of picture, adds a lot of questions in the doctor's mind. So I think that kind of, stops them from taking that much needed leap of faith and getting into something which is completely new.
Yeah, true. I think the risk taking is perhaps the most critical factor here.
So Dr. Radha, if I also may add a point here, I think we are actually viewing the entrepreneurship from like, only from a investor's perspective, right?
Yeah.
If you see, the innovation journey need not be only defined by the monetary success. Of course, that is there. But when we are actually looking at as for an individual, for the ecosystem, for the institutions, there can be multiple exits.
No.
Almost.
Hello, welcome back.
Yes,
Hello,
you're
sir. Yeah.
back.
Yeah, back,
I'm
sir.
back. So,
We
so
carried on the
you are live.
conversation
I
in
thought
absence.
everything got disconnected, but you are live.
All of us are here, sir. Yes.
Oh, fine. Okay. Okay.
Waiting
That's
for
fine.
you.
Ravi had joined back. I lost my internet. I'm connected through my mobile. Welcome to the third webinar in our series presented by QuorumVeda Consulting Services
Oops.
as a consultancy startup. Okay. Fine. Okay. Can we continue?
Yes, yes. I think Ravi was
Yes.
speaking about the non-monetary aspect of
All right.
these.
No, I wanted to have this a kind of discussion to say that, that when you are entering into innovation journey or translation journey, we need not only think about like one final goal, which is basically like, $1 billion exit or something like that. So even if we are actually looking at this journey to start, and even if we take it to a level like, there is an innovation has done, proof of concept is established, there is an IP has been protected. And if it is licensed to say another industry, which is a routine system, it is also probably we should call it as a success. And likewise, also, if we are actually taking it to a certain level, manufacturing, we are leaving it to somebody, outsourcing it to another particular organization, that could be also very good success. I think may not be defined as like everything we have to do it ourselves. So this journey is almost like a passing of a baton in a relay race, and even if we can contribute in some part of it and the others are picking up and taking it to the logical journey, should be also is a good way to look at it. And that's what I wanted to add up.
Thank you, Ravi. Dr. Shakila Kulashekhan has raised her hand. Shakila? Please unmute yourself. Yeah. Unmute yourself, please.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir. I am Dr. Shakila from Medline Robotics. I am on the other end, on the entrepreneurial side. And I thought I'll just put my thoughts. Do we have time, sir? Another 2-3 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So I am in the entrepreneurial journey for the 2.5
Please unmute.
years.
Yeah.
As a director of Medline Robotics, I started my career as an entrepreneur when I was 56. 2.5 years, it is a very long journey. Day and night you have to work to understand all the systems of the regulatory norms, the CDSCO approval, and whatever we have to clear through. In this 2.5 years, I have developed 5 products, and I will come to the difficult part of the journey later. As far as the introducing the system of the entrepreneurship in the medical system, as everyone pointed out, I may not be able to note down the names. As everyone collectively pointed out, it has to be introduced somewhere in the second year as an option. Nothing can be forced on the youngsters nowadays as an option. So once they get exposed to it, they have to be interrelatively moved on to the medtech incubations as interns or to the technical institutions which have the medtech innovations as part of it. So every year, if they get exposed, at the end of 4 years, definitely more, not only 5 or 10, even up to 20 people would be interested in this. If I had been exposed to such sort of exposure in my earlier years, definitely I would have opted out of that. So like it has to be from maybe from second or third year, as long as they are mature enough to decide as a part of the curriculum, as an option, not as a part of the curriculum, as an option. Like they can be interchanged with the technical students. They can just see what type of solutions are being made. That really inculcates the interest to start some entrepreneurship or finding out a solution, leave alone the entrepreneurship. And my strongest belief is we have to get the solution within ourselves. So in the sense, like the doctors have to find the solutions for the problems which are pertaining to our country. And this can happen only when the marriage happens between the tech and the medical. So that's why, like, if we have an interchange of technical students coming to medical, understanding what the problems we have in the medical sector, same way the medical students transfer to the technical institutes, whoever is opting for. So that is the way of getting an ideal number of solutions for the present day problems. So that is the reason I just left my pediatric critical care and neonatal practice. There I'll be seeing few patients. I thought, let me just bring an impact to the society. So we have come out with a solution. We are at the early revenue stage. And the real truth is it's very hard to pass on journey that many of the investors, they are asking us to make. I have invented a robotic bionic leg, which is completed all the regulatory norms also. But even today I had 2 meetings, and both of them said, you sell 20 legs and then come back to us, we would be able to give you the investment. So this is the part. I feel like these young students, giving them that entrepreneurship sweetness and making them, and I think it has to be, the risk has to be taken by themselves after giving them an option, because it is completely a difficult journey. Because I'm just going through this journey 2.5 years, day and night. I can say 26 hours a day, but I'm doing it out of passion. And I don't think it is possible for all of us. And I have, like, whatever has been done, bootstrapped so far, but we are looking for investments from government and state and central government, both of them funded, but that will not suffice for the growth of the company. That brand value to it. So that is the practical truth about running an entrepreneurship company with 5 products completed and 1 in neonatal segment for the very impactful solution of providing hypothermia management for newborns.
Right.
Yeah, this is the truth. I just thought, like, I'll put
Right.
the truth in front of the forum.
Yes,
Yes, thanks
thanks
for
a lot.
giving me.
You just explained the challenges you face. And until recently, I was not aware of any of these challenges, but nowadays I understand after talking to a lot of startups like Shakila's. Now if we involve medics from an early stage, probably we can solve this particular challenge as well. If currently most of such technology is developed by non-medics, and we have a distrust to such technology, especially technology developed by startups. As we all know, we believe in the technology developed by a big company, whether MNC or Indian company, because we believe in big companies, we believe in randomized controlled trials, and we have a lot of technology developed by startups who have 50 patients, 100 patients, and they don't have the financial capability to do any big trials. And medical community has distrust such technology. Technology may be wonderful. At the same time, if you have medics on board from an early stage, they will be having connections with their fellow medical community. And by the time the technology is developed to the positioning marketing stage, the medical community will be already aware about the benefit of the technology. That may be another advantage why medics should be involved at a closer level from an early stage. This particular problem will be solved in a significant way, and also it may be easier to get funding because we deal with the problem, and when we try to convince investors, including healthcare investors, probably we'll be in a better position to get funding from an early stage, even later stage. Ravi, what do you think?
I totally agree with you, Dr. Ghafur. I think the funding is definitely risk mitigation part, and I think having the stakeholder from all the different parts makes it into a very compelling success. I think what I want to also echo on the sentiments shared by Dr. Shakila is that we have to tell the people who want to pursue entrepreneurship that there is actually a challenging journey of certain nature involved. I think we have to be very candid about that in saying it's not just only that we want all these younger people having good energy to pursue into these things, because it's actually a great quality and it's a lot of things can work out in a really best way. It is not. Entrepreneurship will not work many times, and all the things promised from the funding may not happen in the last moment, and even the trials may require revision and adjustment. And it's about managing a target with the lesser resources, time, and everything. But this is now we are actually why this is more critical, because for a country like India, we have actually already very less resources in terms of number of trained people, and we cannot afford to basically use the technologies which are designed for a high resource system. We need to actually create a better way to deliver healthcare, and that needs to be done only in a collaborative way. I think Dr. Radha and Ranjana also mentioned about this SIB program. And SIB program is one of the very successful design innovation program in our country, because if you see that it brings in a team from medical perspective, team from engineering perspective, a team from a business perspective. So they randomly create this kind of a team, and they are given a very short time to this is your problem statement. Go figure out whatever you think it's possible to find a solution. And they are mentored with resources and feedbacks and ideas. And we are very surprised that even within a turnaround of 12 months, they have a lot of interesting products and solutions that's coming up. Now, from that part, we need a little bit more hand-holding and infrastructure and resources for manufacturability, regulatory, and all those things. Now we have those things actually being part of the ecosystem. We are now seeing last decade has been a kind of a teething problem in Indian startup ecosystem. Now we are actually getting a mature system where we have a lot of ecosystems where the incubators have good experience of being through that. And I think now what we need is to assemble more of these kind of a teams. And if we are able to bring in and collaborate these kind of a teams of academicians, doctors from the day one, there are a lot of problems that we can solve. I mean, this is an interesting thing about Indian ecosystem, right? Now you are actually looking at a very large scale of problems. So you cannot solve just for like 10 people. You have to solve for a very large scalable. Now, if you solve in India, then this can be a globally acceptable solution also. That if you can get a problem working in India, you can definitely get it solved for many other places. So I think that is an opportunity all of us are facing, that we have an opportunity to solve a lot of new challenges. And right now, their ecosystem and other things will be very fruitful to support. But every individual who wants to go through this journey, like a degree program, they have to keep it in their mind that, at least 4 to 5 years, I'm going to dedicate myself into this one. And that is required. You cannot actually say that, this is my part-time thing, I'm going to do this thing. You need to give yourself that time to the solution. Then only you will be able to create a solution that is fully impactful. So this is some suggestions, but
yeah, thanks, Ravi. I'm sure we will put forward these suggestions to health education policy makers. Now, how we can probably we can have dedicated DM 5-year DM course just like DM in neurosurgery, DM in medtech entrepreneurship and tech innovation. And even if you fail as an entrepreneur financially, still that will be a wonderful experience. And this experience can be used for hospital administration. And those people who have got 5-year experience in medtech entrepreneurship will be wonderful medical administrators. Having an MBA won't give you much experience, but having a success or failure as a medtech entrepreneur will be amazing experience. The financial experience, the experience of collaboration, the experience of undergoing going through challenges. Probably they'll be the best administrators the medical institution can have.
Definitely. Right.
Dr. Ranjana? Probably should we think about the same setup in non-medical academic institutions as well? Academics with experience of success or failure as entrepreneurs, as administrators of, or given preference as administrators of such academic institutions.
Yeah, for sure. And also, definitely that would benefit the future entrepreneurs. But in addition to that, having some kind of funding mechanism. I do agree that, entrepreneurship is fueled by economy, and that is something which one should never forget. Launch a product that is needed and not a product which is not needed, for sure. Be confident about your project, and all of these things are taught, I think. But then having some amount of funding mechanism to certain level, I think would really, really help. And I do agree with Ravi that, having support system in terms of mentorship, in terms of success stories, and in terms of failure stories. I think the failure stories are the best ones, what not to do. And then, and the failure experiences, I think, are the best. So both of these things would really help.
Thank you, Ranjana. The funding, it's a very important component. Our finance minister, our governments give a lot of importance to supporting entrepreneurs, a lot of support for MSMEs. Probably we should see that level of support for medtech entrepreneurship in all institutions, academic institutions, medical institutions, and that will make a big difference. Probably we should expand that MSME concept to medtech entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship in all the other areas, innovation entrepreneurship in all the other areas. Radha?
I think, at the end of the day, the journey of an entrepreneur is very, very, very difficult. And I completely empathize with what Dr. Shakila is saying. We might paint a rosy or romantic picture of being full of innovating and trying out new ideas. But when you're responsible for salaries of people who work with you, when you're responsible for making sure that the work goes on, even though you're told hundreds of times that this is no good, go talk to somebody else. It's very, very frustrating, and it's not something that everyone can do. But I'm going to give my parting thoughts on this, which is that at the end of the day, one has to find ways to leverage resources and to spread the risk. And now, having come into academia, from the private sector, and having seen big company, small company, and academia, and so on and so forth, I'll say that I think what startups need to do is to work with academic institutes in much more ways than they are right now. There is an academic institute that is doing the kind of research that most entrepreneurs in the healthcare space are trying to do. There is some academic institute out there for you. I'm sure of that. And therefore, connecting with these academic institutes and finding ways to collaborate spreads the risk and leverages funding across public and private sectors. And that, I think, is important for a country like India, where the investor community is very risk averse. In addition to, people at large, I mean, investors themselves are very risk averse. So I think collaboration between academia and startups is a critical part of developing the innovation ecosystem in India. So those are my parting thoughts.
Right. Thank you, Radha. Ranjana?
Yeah, working together, I think, is the way to do it. Having industries and academic institutes would be a dream. Having medical colleges in IITs would be another dream. Likewise, I'm describing all my dreams, but yeah, why not? And then, as Radha said, partnering with academicians, partnering with clinicians, as well as, entrepreneurs, all of them coming together, involvement of academic institutes, involvement of IITs, involvement of our students, involvement of our research projects from early on. I think that would really, really help. Thank you.
Thank you. Raksha?
Yes, so having represented the medicos, what I feel is having the core expertise of your specialty is one thing, and also as we speak about collaboration and partnering, respecting the other expertise, giving that space to work on and having that confidence in them to build that partnership to scale up the project. I think that also we have to keep in mind, because we should not be working in silos and saying, okay, this is my expertise, it is their expertise. Now, at the end of the day, this project is going to shape up by, magic. This respecting each other's expertise and building up this confidence on each other's inputs and then scaling up the project. I think that is one thing. And another thing, what I think we missed was the awareness of the regulatory compliances, the documentation. That skill set also needs to improve in all of us. We are not aware of many of these things, like Dr. Shakila mentioned. The amount of hurdles that you need to cross, and the amount of no's that you get. I think you should be accepting of those failures and having a basic financial idea of what can fail and what can succeed. Where is this money going? Where is this project heading to? The startup fundamentals. How does a startup function? How to conduct meetings? How to talk to your team members? What do you have? Something for a plan B? These kind of nitty-gritties, I think we need to learn as we go. That is something which I think as a medico, we should be learning on the go, be it UG, PG, or if you're a specialist or a expert, 10, 20 years or, decade through it, or if you're the most known doctor also, I think we should build up these skill sets. This is my take home message.
Thank you. Ravi?
I think we had a lot of things covered. So I think just picking up from the ecosystem perspective, having this kind of content built into a course, and then this course being actually given at the undergraduate level and appropriate level will increase the overall awareness in the next generation of people. I mean, we grew up and we are actually all learning off the fly. There is an economical aspect to policy and there is a regulatory aspect. I think this basic knowledge should be put together into some kind of a course, and it should be possibly made into a biodesign course for all MBBS. Likewise, an entrepreneurship course for engineers, so that this thought about building solutions and products should be incorporated at an undergraduate level. I think a lot can be systematically designed into the ecosystem, like fellowships. Right, so that if we are wanting some of our young people to dedicate 5 years to come up with solutions, and then we should not tell them you are gone, you can be a failure at the end of the fair. We should protect their interest by giving an appropriate MD translation or something like that, so that they are actually given their full enthusiasm during that time to set it up. I think the third part is we should have structured ecosystem. Our incubator should have enough good set of people who know about this ecosystem, and there are connected knowledge about like where they can access if there is a cardiology related, where they can go. If there is some kind of a in vitro related, they can go. So I think these kind of incubators with the knowledge, hand-holding, if these three things can be put together, then a lot of things can happen around these things.
Thank you, Ravi. We had a wonderful brainstorming session. A lot of excellent ideas, but we have a big mission ahead. All of us will keep more and more people involved. We'll start communicating with organizations, institutions, medical institutions, non-medical academic institutions, create that and maintain that momentum. I'm sure over the next few years, through collective action, we can create that change. And we need to make that change. That is the need of the hour. And today's discussion, we will have excellent points, and we will have a lot of follow-up discussions. We'll involve more researchers, engineers, academicians, medics, and we'll find a way forward, and we'll make sure that collectively, and we will deliver those messages to the necessary institutions, including medical council. And that way, probably we'll be able to make that change. Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ravi.
I must add, your energy and enthusiasm is too infectious. We are really
Yes, agreed.
You see, to be frank, we're all learning a lot, and it's nice to talk to people like working you in IITs and CSI, the research institutions. We medics are too involved in our daily clinical meetings on protocols, guidelines, and we are like living in a box. We never think out of the box, and unless we all think out of the box, we can't create change. And this is an area we all learn. This is an area we need to work together, collaborate together, and make that change happen. Thanks a lot. Good night. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Right. Bye.